Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. I have to start today's episode very quickly by not only introducing my co-host like I usually do, but also introducing my producer for a very specific reason. So, hello, Jeremy Cohen.
Hey, Jonathan Macri.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Actually, you know what? Don't answer that. Don't answer. Hello, Andrew Claudio.
What is this?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm okay, I guess. What is this?
So I just want to start today's episode by saying to anyone out there listening to this who may have experienced, you're if you're listening to this, you might live in New York. You might be a fan of one of the local football teams. If anyone out there has had a similar Sunday to young Mr. Claudio or Cohen here, one of them's a Jet fan, one of them's a Giant fan. Doesn't matter, not really. And you're like, you know what? I just
definitely does matter. I've seen a Super Bowl win in my lifetime.
Yeah, but what have you done in the last decade, Jeremy?
Personally, a lot.
A lot. No, as a football fan.
Yeah.
Then argue that your mediocre quarterback's better. That applies to the last one too.
Listen, my mediocre quarterback is going to have a flawless LinkedIn page. He's going to interview, and they're going to interview him, and they're going to be like, "Oh, I see you played football for the New York Giants."
I would much rather. He's going to be like Ron Baker. He's going to be working for a health insurance company in 4 years. Or
he'll do finance. He'll be on the stock exchange floor, buying and selling, and listen, I don't have the best grasp of the financial sector, but well, in terms of like how, the stock market, like the day to day, but
doesn't seem like Daniel Jones has much of a grasp of anything.
Well, what I was going to say is like, I feel like if he has to walk around holding papers, it's like going to get tossed aside, or he's going to just drop it by accident. Someone will bump into him. Papers go flying everywhere, and that'll be his life.
I was going to say I'd much rather be John
made a funny. That was really good. Not about grasp of anything. That's good.
Well, listen, whether you're a Giants fan or a Jets fan, this is just a reminder that one, we're here for you. You have someplace else to turn to listen to content about sports that has nothing to do with either of your football teams. And guess what? Even though your football season is over on checks notes, September 12th, today, 0 days since your last nonsense. Guess what? Training camp is 2 weeks away.
All I will say is I came into the season with no expectations anyway. So you could argue the season hasn't even begun for me as a Jets fan. I'm here for progress, John, and I saw my team get shut out in the first half and then outscore the other team 14-3 in the second half. Glass half full, sir. So
full disclosure, we had gymnastics this morning, and we're still in Long Island for gymnastics. So I listened to the first half of the Jets game on the radio, and I was thankful that I only had to listen to it.
It was not fun.
And then as for the Giants, I have to say, Jeremy, I'd be feeling great if I were you, because I don't know if they make odds for such things after 1 week, but you have to be the favorites for the first pick in the draft after. No.
The Giants are going to be good enough where they're not going to get the first pick in the draft.
Oh.
Maybe they trade up because they also have the Bears first round pick.
Okay. That might be valuable.
Yeah. Let me actually double check this, because the Jets had the second best odds because of strength of schedule. So right now the Giants are 12th, which there's 14 0-1 teams, so this doesn't matter, but it goes by strength of schedule as the tiebreaker.
Okay.
So the Jets right now have the sixth best odds because they're 0-1. And of the remaining teams that are winless, I think the Patriots are going to win a game this year. I think the Bills are going to win a game this year. I think the Colts are going to win this game. And I think the Packers will win a game.
So can we start, at least for the next several weeks? Can I just open? We won't do this whole diatribe because we record on Sundays. I'm not that cruel, but can I at least start each recording by just asking you guys the simple question: are you rooting
against your team?
Yes. Or have we reached the point where you're rooting against your team? Have we reached to what was the pre-Zion season? 18-19, right? Where we basically we were not rooting for losses, but There were.
Oh no, I 100% was rooting for losses for the
We
Giants.
didn't have to. They would lose anyway if we wanted them to win or lose at all.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter.
I'll say this, with this podcast and our viewers and listeners as my witness, John Schmeal came on this podcast and I said, I don't care about the Giants because I know it's going to be the same old. So, and here we are, where me self-deprecating, like using humor as my weapon against me and you instead of you just against me. So I feel much better knowing that I can laugh at myself before you laugh at me, which is great. But with all that said,
that's a lot.
I know that even if the Giants go 1-16, and it's ridiculous that we have to now worry about a 17th game where it's like just an extra loss peppered in there. But the beauty of it is that Dave Gettleman's still going to be here to make the pick. So it's going to be like, I could see it 5 years from now, Gettleman's still clinging on to life I don't mean that negatively as like real life. I just mean, I realize how that came out. I hope he lives a very long time.
Metaphysical of this podcast.
But he's like in Cape Cod, just making boneheaded decisions. He's like, we still got to fix the offensive line. And it's like, great. Okay. How do you plan on doing that? And it's like, we're just going to take a tackle who's terrible. It's like, cool. Well, we'll cross this bridge again in another 5 years, Dave. Thank you.
Well, who knows? Maybe there's a Leon Rose. Who is the Leon Rose of the NFL? Is there one?
Drew Rosenhaus?
Do you want Drew Rosenhaus?
An agent that became a GM. I don't know. Actually, is there an example of that?
I don't know of one. I feel like that's the type of thing that. Although, listen, it was out of the box when. Who was the first one that did it in basketball? Was it Myers or was
Bob Myers?
It was Myers. Okay.
You know who I want? I want Adam Schefter to run the team because at this point, why not? If we're going with like unorthodox things, just throwing things at the wall, like, hey, what sticks?
Don't laugh. Who's the
Adam Schefter?
The Thunder beat reporter for ESPN, who just is now
Royce Young.
Yeah, Royce Young. I mean, he seems like a super bright guy. So I don't mean to disparage Royce Young at all. I'm sure he's going to be great there. But
Jeremy, can I give you one hint of a silver lining? Remember that John Schmeelk podcast you referenced and how I threw out there the conspiracy theory of the Giants' next quarterback potentially being Aaron Rodgers?
Oh,
the Packers didn't look great today. The wheels might come off of that real quick.
You know who else didn't look great today, Andrew?
Daniel Jones.
Aaron Rodgers.
Well, true, but some of that might have had to do with the fact that he is still in his honeymoon phase. Literally went on his honeymoon and still hasn't come back yet. And next year, when he and Shailene live in Manhattan,
is it Cheyenne?
Shailene Woodley.
Oh, I actually really thought her name was Cheyenne.
Nope.
I apologize, Shailene.
You're welcome, Shailene Woodley. When they live in Long Island City or a part of New Jersey that's really nice and close to New York City, and she's doing Broadway, and he's
doesn't exist.
The Giants quarterback. That's a possibility is what I'm saying.
It's just like Aaron Rodgers and Shailene Woodley going around like the Short Hills Mall, just looking at all the fancy things and that's their life. Yeah. Where they could be west where they want to be, where it's, probably not as cold and the better team and all that jazz.
The real possibility is Miami because I didn't like what I saw at Tua today, but they have a squad. They beat the Patriots and went into Foxborough and did it. So,
Tua, baby. Tua all day long.
The Knicks correlation here, if you want to bring it all the way back, is that Jeremy is stuck in 2018, 19, 20, whatever the Steve Mills era was. You're stuck with an organizational problem that even if they got Aaron Rodgers, nothing is really going to change until that guy is gone.
Yeah.
So this is,
Well, I'll say that in terms of like a strategy thing, because I feel like, it obviously differs from basketball to football, but I think one of the best ways you can succeed in football is build a great team with the money you have and then find a way to get a young elite quarterback who is on a cheap contract. And then you can find success that way. I mean, with Mahomes, obviously he could be the greatest quarterback ever, or at least one of, but that's the strategy they kind of employed. Jared Goff, they did something similarly. Like with the Bucks, they just managed the opposite, where they paid a lot of money for Tom Brady and it worked out to their benefit because they won a Super Bowl. But I still think, getting a younger guy who's cost controlled, who plays a premium position, not drafting a running back at second overall, finding actual guards who can do that guard, like the other pieces seem to be, and maybe getting an offensive coordinator whose head isn't so far up his ass that he doesn't really know the difference between his liver and his spleen. But the point being is that there are ways to fix this. Getting it's week 1 and we're saying I'm saying fire Gettleman, whatever. It's long overdue, but it's the point here with the Giants, with Steve Mills and that sort of thing, where you can so easily just like put a new, I guess you could put lipstick on a pig in a sense where it actually you can say to your fan base, hey, we're trying to make a change here. We're doing something that feels different. Cause right now it's just stale, like even Joe Judge, I like him, but like he only has so much to work with. And if it's at the top where it's not working, well, it's a problem. Like he's not a Fizdalian type coach. But
your point about being stale is a really good one, because our nerd brain last offseason and even this offseason to a certain extent, we're really happy, but more, I don't want to use this word because it's going to come off as derogatory, but I'm going to just say more casual Knicks fans. We're like, fucking do something. That's because when your team sucks, the worst thing is stale. You want, right? Exciting. This actually is a very good transition. Before I get to the transition, because we're going to talk about Trae Young and the wrestling thing and villains before we get to our game. Could you imagine if in the NBA there was no lottery and it was just that it was reverse worst record for the draft? Like, could you imagine what the NBA would look like in a season where Zion, because we knew, the Zion hype was already there after a week, 2 weeks. The NBA schedule hadn't even really started. Like, could you possibly wrap your mind around teams climbing over themselves to lose? Like, I personally, that would be, how many teams would be in the running for that ever on those sorts of years?
It would be shameless. Teams would have no issue.
It's shameless now.
But it's to an even greater degree. The Thunder, of course, but imagine if there were no barriers whatsoever in terms of these odds. It's like, hey, I could give you 100% chance of getting a top prospect if you just lose pretty much every single game. And I'm sure other teams would have tried to get in on that. The Cavs, the Suns, maybe they would have had just enough talent, but they would have found mysterious injuries or illnesses or, whatever. Yeah. Like, hey, Devin Booker's out with a broken penis, and like the Cavs, Colin Sexton. I'm just saying, like they could do anything that fits the agenda of them just losing and listing ridiculous. Like Pop was fined $250,000 for resting his players, and you're telling me that like that is worse than saying Devin Booker has a broken schlong. I'm sorry, but I think that it's.
I'm not trying to pile on the Jets, but it's actually amazing to me that the NFL doesn't have to worry about this problem at all. And you actually get a situation like last year with the Jets where they were, what were they, Andrew? Whatever. They hadn't won a game. They were
0-13 and then won 2 games in a row to pass the Jaguars. Yes.
Like, could you fathom if I can't even fathom this, but like if it's the Zion year and the Knicks were like 5-68, right? And then they won like 5 out of 7 games because like a player was healthy enough to play. And then they're like, I'm making shit up, but like we would be fucking rioting.
This is where Jeremy will agree with me on this.
I know it's a different sport,
but
it's different.
But the difference is so big in that one player can change your franchise for a decade in the NBA. Whereas Trevor Lawrence
was not.
He was fine. They lost by 20. Like, you could be a good quarterback, go to the worst team in the NFL, and it'll be bad going forward.
No, that's fair.
The NFL, I see this because I got mad at Jets fans when that first win happened. They're like, oh my God, they did it to us again. And it's like, or the second pick could be the quarterback that was promised, because it's fine. There's been one player this century to win the MVP award, drafted 1 overall, and his name is Cam Newton. And he's already not able to find a job in the NFL.
Peyton Manning was drafted last century. How about that? Yeah. Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good stat. Tim Couch didn't win an MVP.
No. Like Andrew Luck. Like,
right.
Like Carson Wentz was the second pick. Jared Goff made the Super Bowl already on his second team. Yeah. You need a full roster for football. Whereas,
but that's the thing.
Zion or Luka and you're set.
When a team is struggling, that's what they're peddling is hope. It's the fact like fans can sleep at night knowing that the possibility of being the best at something is what's so exciting. And is that a problem? It depends on your view. If you think that tanking is shameless and awful, then that's fine. If you think that tanking is the best philosophy, then that's fine too. I'm sure people fall for the most part somewhere in the middle, and it's a very wide spectrum of things. But the point being here, where for football, it's a larger sport. You have 11 on one side, 11 on the other. And with basketball, it's really just 5 guys on the court, and you have to have a superstar to win. And if you don't have a superstar, then you're not going to go anywhere. And if you're a small market team, then you have various constraints, which football doesn't really have as much of a problem with, because money is just kind of different that way. And so
2 of the best 5 quarterbacks of the 2 of the best 8 quarterbacks of the last 30 years have played in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So,
right. Or Indianapolis, which I'm sure is a fine city, but that I don't see many people flocking to go to the Pacers, for example.
You're subtly shitting on the fine city of Indianapolis.
Hey, listen, I bet it's great. I know that Clyde loves his steak and shake from there, so it has some value of sorts.
All right. It's a terrible city is Atlanta. Because that's where Trae Young plays. And so smoothest transition, smoothest as can be expected. So what did he do this week? He came out and got a whole bunch of wrestling fans riled up at MSG, from what I could tell from a 2-minute clip. This is, I guess this is what counts as villainy in 2021. Andrew, what do you put me onto this? I watched the clip. I have to say I'm not a wrestling fan, so maybe it didn't resonate with me as much. But then
Have you ever been a wrestling fan?
When I was 8.
Are you familiar with the term heel?
I am familiar with the term heel. Yes.
All right, Jeremy, have you ever been a wrestling fan?
Nope.
Not really. Okay.
No. So Jeremy, did the Trae Young coming out and doing the thing that he did that hit you in the same way? It seemed like it was really hitting some people on Twitter.
To me, it was just like, oh, this is pretty funny. The fact that it's like a very staged thing and he's getting into it, like, playing up the villain role. It's all part of a storyline that.
Wait. What do you mean? What do you mean storyline? You make it seem like it's scripted.
Sorry. It was very spontaneous. I'm surprised that he went out there, and it was very surprising, of course, to see him, let alone a wrestler wearing a Kevin Knox jersey. I think that was the most unrealistic part of all of that. But in terms of
they discontinued a little.
Trae Young, it's like, actually, sorry. Trae Young came out to Madison Square Garden and was showered with boos, and it was all very real. And those boos were guttural. People felt them. They felt them deep in their plums. So it was out there.
It is, but I think you nailed the last part, which will lead into our little mini conversation about this, because the topic of Knicks villains came up briefly when we did the Patreon pod with Chris, and we were talking about like who were the Knicks like most villainous opponents at this point. If you had to say like who's the biggest Knick villain, and I think who do we arrive on? The Heat at this, right?
It's the Heat, but the bigger takeaway for me, and we joke about our ages on here, but I'm actually curious how Jeremy feels about this. Chris said that nobody his age cares about the Pacers. And for me, the bigger rival of the 90s was the Indiana Pacers to the Miami Heat, even though there was literal bloodshed against
which I think
Miami
that's
Heat.
fair.
Which, fine. I still it's wild to me that the Knicks Pacers rivalry might be dead, because I still get up for Knicks Pacers. Like, okay, there's that yellow and navy blue team that I want to win every time we play the Pacers. There's 6 games that I really wanted the Knicks to win to last year more than anybody else. And it was the Pacers and the Heat, more so than Brooklyn, which has changed nowadays. And
my point to you, before I hear what Jeremy has to say, is I think personally, the rivalry is kind of dead. And I think to what Jeremy was saying with the guttural reaction to Trae Young, I think people, whether they be Chris's age, whether they be our age, whether they be whatever, I think people are yearning for a rivalry again. I think people want someone to root against. I think people want a villain. I think there is a weird this like weird segment like that Trae Young has now filled an empty void because there has been a void because there has not been any rivalry involving the New York Knicks. I'm sorry, all due respect to the Nets. Like, are the fucking Nets our rival? Like, yeah, we don't like the Nets, but are they our rival? Or is that, are they like a villain to the Knicks? Like, I don't know. So Jeremy, I'm curious what you think about all this.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head with Trae Young, at least. For 8 years, we've seen the Knicks not make the playoffs, and they make the playoffs. And we desperately, yearn for this type of villain because it basically says to us that we are important enough to actually care about someone else beating us, because that just goes to show that this team is good again, because
as opposed to consistently tanking, which is
right.
What we're
like if you're a dormant team that's picking 8th or 9th for what feels like forever, and now suddenly you get to talk about things you did in the playoffs, it's a very different shift. Like, what were we talking about beforehand? Like, okay, yeah, they're these teams in the East, but our biggest foes are the ones that we're tanking against. Like, remember when it was, the Timberwolves, do we get the coin flip of who gets the pick and who doesn't? Or, hey, the Timberwolves could get Karl Anthony Towns and the Knicks might not, that sort of thing. Like that's not a rivalry.
No.
So I will say, I still root against the Pacers because there is some numbness towards 2013. And there's also, a bit, let me put it this way. Based on the fact that I didn't get to see the 90s Knicks and I grew up with such a bad team, that's like the pinnacle kind of where the Knicks were. Their peak was cut short because of Indiana. But I don't see them as a threat because I think that they're a team that just hates tanking so much that they refuse to do it. And that's why I believe they haven't had a top 10 pick or top 9 pick since like 1990 or 1989. So with that philosophy, I won't go out of my way to be like, I hate the Pacers so much that I can't stand them. And, of the 6 games, for example, that Andrew listed with the Heat and the Pacers, I'd love to beat the Pacers, but it's not like I'll be like, man, I can't believe, like, I really wanted that game. I wanted all 3 of those games. Just like, okay, I'm glad they won 2 of them. But to me, it's like they won 2 out of 3. If it's a tiebreaker situation, there you go. If it's just like beating a team that is good, then that's great too. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of like, I don't really consider the Hawks a villainous team. I think Trae Young, I don't even really think he's a villain, but I'll play into the role of like, sure, let's support.
He seems to think he's a villain.
Well, yes. And I'm glad he's embracing it because it's fun for all parties. But I do think that the Knicks and the Hawks are using each other, and it's totally fine because it's a working relationship. But like the Knicks are using Trae Young and the Hawks as a way of showing we're back. This is the start of something and things are going to be fun. But the Hawks are also showing like, we are back as well. We were in the conference finals. We were embarrassed by LeBron, had some dormant years, but also not having a Christmas game for, I think it was like the longest stretch of any other NBA team or second longest stretch.
The Hawks?
The Hawks did, yes.
Oh, wow. I honestly didn't realize that.
Right. And now they'll be playing Christmas, Madison Square Garden. And I just think it's actually a great mutually beneficial relationship between the two, where the Hawks obviously went further than just that Knicks series, and it's good for them. And maybe they do it in the future. But that sort of thing of like, if we want to make this something, because I feel like there aren't a ton of storylines in the NBA rivalry wise. And maybe that's a product of the AAU and training. And
I have a different thought theory. I think that's part of it. And the fact that, there's a book to be written. Did rivalries end on, was it July 9th, 2010? Maybe.
I don't think they did, but yes, the whole super team philosophy were clearly, because they were still friends, right? It's not like, hey, it's not like Giannis and James Harden. You're like, hey, let's put our differences aside and really do this. I mean, like even Kobe and Dwight Howard, that really didn't work out, but they said, let's settle what we have, or even before then, Kobe and Shaq. But it seemed rosy at times, and then it got harder and there was intra-conflict. So
it's funny because I'm thinking about what I just said. Did they end on that day? And the implication obviously was because LeBron went and teamed up with his buddies. But I think it's actually, I think they did end kind of that day. And maybe they had ended probably sometime before, but that was really the shift for the NBA in terms of player movement. Forget about who they were going to join. but that was like, oh, wow, a guy like LeBron left Cleveland. And then it started the cavalcade of like, okay, now guys, like, think about this. The Knicks and the Pacers played each other 6 times in the playoffs in 8 seasons. And the Knicks and Heat played each other in the playoffs 4 straight seasons. That, and sorry, more just as importantly, although, I mean, I guess one thing has to do with the other. The cores of those teams, not exactly the same, but more or less the same throughout those sustained runs. And that's the thing I think that has changed, is because players move around so much and you know, move around when they want and for the most part where they want. You know, and it takes teams time to build up. So by the time you get there, it seems like you have this 2, 3, maybe 4-year window of like being an elite franchise. And like, what are the odds that you're going to face the same team, you know, through, I mean, it still happens rarely, but I think that's the thing that more than anything else is the reason why we're not, you know, we're just not going to see that stuff anymore.
Yeah. I think the Warriors have had their fair share of enemies. You know, the Clippers Warriors was pretty big. Warriors Rockets. I mean, how many years have we seen Daryl Morey tweet congrats to the Warriors on a great season as the Rockets get eliminated? Yeah. So, you know, I mean, there are fun angles that we can have here, but yeah, I think another product might also be that, especially in an upcoming season like this one, right? Where on paper, the shift of power, you know, it feels like, okay, Lakers and Nets and a lot of other teams, but a lot of those other teams could still be very good and they could challenge the Lakers. But last year, where it felt so wide open, where like with that Final Four, it just felt like friendly, you know, like you can find players that you dislike on all of those teams. Yeah. But you know, if you're just a casual fan, are you really going to hate the Suns or the Clippers? Are you going to hate the Bucks or the Hawks? No, you're going to like, you know,
wait, hold on. If you're a casual fan, maybe this is a dumb question. And because I literally am asking it as I haven't thought it through. Who is there to hate in the NBA? Right. Okay. Is LeBron? You're giving me a look. LeBron. Okay.
Yeah.
Do people hate LeBron?
Yes.
Look, I say that out loud, and I know every Knicks fan listening to this podcast is like, I fucking hate that. I get it. Like, we don't like LeBron for myriad reasons. I don't know that he occupies the same place in the collective fan bases of other teams that like Jordan did, for instance. And I'm sure, you know, and a bunch of other guys. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I could be wrong.
Jeremy. Well, so maybe this is an age thing, but like you just said it. Michael Jordan. Nobody hated Michael Jordan. At least I don't think people hated Michael Jordan.
Oh, I love Michael Jordan.
Right. But he was everybody's favorite player. You hated losing to him, right. But he was the most popular player in the planet. So LeBron, part of the hatred toward him is that the conversation of greatest of all time gets talked about all the time on FS1 and ESPN, and we're inundated with him for the last 18 years. And as a result, there's that hatred. And then like, I have a question for both of you, but do you think that what ended on July 8th, 2010 wasn't rivalries between teams, but it's now just become player rivalries? It's not Heat versus Celtics anymore, Heat or Cavs versus Warriors. It's LeBron versus Steph, LeBron versus KD. Yeah. It's a player rivalry now.
Well, I think that's fair considering how players just treat their contracts like they're nothing really. You know, like if you go up against a player and that's the case, like that's great. But since we're seeing so many guys move around, it may not necessarily be that team factor. I actually hadn't really considered that before. And I think that's a very good point in terms of just the philosophy of how it works. So yeah, I mean, if you see a player get traded and it's like, oh, hey, remember their brush up with another player or so on. But for us, you know, like if you're a fan of that team and they're gone, maybe it's a different story, or if you're inheriting that player. But otherwise, I mean, it's not, you know, it's not a huge factor from a team perspective.
It's funny because we were just talking about how all these guys are friends. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know, because then you have a guy like KD. Like, does Durant care about, his place on the totem pole next to LeBron? I mean, again, maybe that's a stupid question. I genuinely don't know the answer to it.
I'm sure
he's yeah.
Oh yeah. Listen, anyone who takes the time to basically argue with teenagers and tweens about how they view him, and it's fine. That's his prerogative.
Because that's
totally fine to do that.
He's a grown teenager himself,
right? But he still cares. He cares about his, he cares about who he is. He cares about his ability to win. His ability.
He went to Brooklyn because it was fucking chill. That's documented in the new book that I forget the author's name, but a new book just came out, which that's the reason he went there, because it was a chill vibe, right? If he cared about his legacy, I mean, not to get back into this again, but like, he would be here.
Not necessarily, because he wanted to carve his own path for whatever. Yes, he wanted to carve his own path, because he can. The thing is that on this team, well, actually now I don't even know, because with James Harden, you could make an argument that like
his own path, his own path with fucking Kyrie Irving and James Harden, where he's essentially the coach of the team. There's like a community coach.
But listen, he's said in the past about being on that Warriors team and what the reactions were and the dynamics of the team. I'm sure that Steph's shadow, whatever it was, but also he just didn't seem to want to be there, and they were walking on eggshells about, is KD going to leave? Is he going to stay? Like the whole conversation he had with Draymond Green, where they were talking about that argument, and Draymond,
because he didn't have fucking carte blanche.
Right. I understand that, but that's the thing. It's like, it wasn't a normal environment, and he recognized that.
What does that have to do with his legacy?
No, but it has to do with his legacy, because if he stays or not, if he stays and the Warriors continue being dominant, then what does that say? It's like, hey, Durant stayed. He's winning with this team. He won 2 finals MVPs at that. It's that sort of thing, versus him not wanting to be at that place, wanting to carve his own path. It's all part of his legacy. It's just a matter of whether he feels that cements him as better than or not. I mean, like LeBron has switched teams, 3 times now?
And the last one was as much a business decision because of where it put him as it was a basketball decision. Although,
right. But it worked. They won a title.
Yes. Although, well, yeah, no, it worked.
Easy on the all, though. I know what you're thinking, though. Is that it was done in Disney World?
No. It's not that. What I was going to say is, he's so great that the minute he walks onto a team, they become a top 5 contender. And like, you could have gone somewhere else and forced them to trade for Anthony. I mean, it's like, there's a lot of whatever. We don't need to go down that road, but
can we just point out the fact that, James Harden went down, Kyrie Irving went down. It was him, and his best player was probably Jeff Green. And they still made it fascinating. And, again, we could do the woulda, coulda, shouldas. And I hate the fact that I'm even defending Kevin Durant at this point.
Oh, I've defended him as a player. No, of course. This is not me targeting him as a player. I'm wondering if he cares where his place in history is.
I'm sure he does. Because, again, think about also in an alternate kind of universe. If we want to go like the what if angle that Marvel's taking, for example, what if Durant's foot is not on the line? What if he sinks the 3? What are we saying about Giannis? What are we saying about KD? You have to imagine the Nets get through the Hawks. Then we're looking at maybe
they'd be champions,
Suns, right?
They would have marched.
But then everything about that is different, right? Like the heel turn, even for Giannis, which was like, hey, Giannis can't even get out of the second round. Got to fire a Budenholzer. Chris Middleton's not second option. All that thing.
Everything turns on a trifle. I get that. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the point here, which is that, do we have rivalries anymore, whether they between players, teams, anything? Well, I'll say this. It's nice to have a team that we talk about and root for that I think seems to be embracing an identity, which is the thing I think we all agree is kind of leaving most NBA franchises, because most NBA franchises, the identity is who's the best player on the team. And if there's nobody who's like to that echelon, then they really don't have an identity. And their identity is we're looking for that guy. I think the Knicks, in a weird way, even though you could argue that they have one of maybe I do not mean to disparage Julius Randle when I say this, but one of the lower level, like, best players on a team in the league, or at least maybe in the bottom third, bottom half even. Like, they have an identity. And they don't care the fact that their best player is Julius Randle. Like, they are, like, Big 15. Can it sustain for another year? I guess we'll find out. But I would you like to see them play the Hawks again in the playoffs?
Sure. Why not? I think that'd be fun.
I think it'd be fun too.
Yeah.
Yes. I want revenge. I want blood. Yes. You gotta understand, this is all we got. You open the show talking about the state of our football teams. We haven't even talked about the state of our baseball teams. This is all we got.
I was being kind.
Thank you.
I was being kind.
This is all we have. We're recording during the third game of the Subway Series because neither of us care. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was happening.
Yeah, there's another game happening, John. Mm-hmm. There you go.
Regrettably.
To Jeremy, first of all, Jeremy, thank you for bringing up that what if, because Schwinn hates when I bring up that what if about KD, because his KD slander has reached an irrational point. And I just like to point out that 2 inches away from you being like, he lost. Meanwhile, his boy Steph didn't even make the playoffs. The argument for, like, there still being rivalries, like, Harden Giannis is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we and Knicks land don't realize it or not, he's just big and tall and strong versus I'm 6'5" and have to work harder for my points. Like, the KD, like, I'm unguardable, and this 6'5" guard that all he does is shoot really well. Meanwhile, like, to now defend Steph, shoots better than anybody ever has in the history of the sport. Like, that's a thing. The reason LeBron versus Steph became a thing is because the novelty of, oh, that's cute, he shoots really well. Yeah. Then he's winning unanimous MVPs, and the whole sport is deciding to shoot threes. And LeBron got offended by that in 2016.
I'll say this. I know this is fucking something nobody wants to hear who's listening to this show. I think Milwaukee-Brooklyn has a chance to be a real rivalry in the years to come. That could be, you want to talk about multiple conference finals in a row. I mean, they're the two favorites right now.
But even to compare Knicks Hawks to Knicks Pacers back then, Knicks Hawks, this is the middle of the Eastern Conference we're talking about. Knicks Heat.
And it could be the middle. It doesn't matter that it's the middle.
But my point is, the Knicks Pacers, neither of those teams won a finals. Yeah, 3 of those matchups happened in the conference finals, but it was never a situation where the winner of this game became champion. It was always like, we won a tough rivalry against the tough matchup against the Pacers, but and then we lost to Houston, and then we lost to Michael Jordan, and then they lost to Shaq.
No, that's fair, but I think. See, this is where it's tough because I was young. I was still young. I was a teenager, but I didn't really have a full. I can't tell sitting here right now if those teams, if there was a real chance that those teams could have won it all. And I kind of think I mean, when Jordan was active, maybe that's different. But like the other years, and I know he was active for a lot of these years. The other years, I feel like in 99 and 2000. In 90, obviously 94, you could say 95 even. Like, I don't know. Would it have been that crazy if one of those teams won a championship? I don't think so.
No, the point was more like we're talking about a rivalry in the 90s between two teams that didn't eventually become champions.
No, I understand.
It's not like Yankees Red Sox where like the Yankees, well, I guess technically the Yankees won in 03 and didn't, but the Red Sox won in 04, became champions. The Red Sox won in 2018, became champions.
Yeah.
Can I just get you guys to list who you think the Knicks in order are like the biggest rivals right now? Like
now,
who's the number one team you personally want to see the Knicks beat more than anybody?
John, you want to go first?
I think it's fascinating generationally.
There's only two teams. It's the Nets or the Hawks. And I think I gotta tell you, when they lost to the Nets last year, it got under my skin.
Oh, wow. So the Nets more than the Hawks.
Well, will that be the same this year? Like, if we lose on the Hawks on Christmas Day, that's going to ruin my
Christmas.
That's going to ruin my holiday break.
Yep.
So, can I call it a tie?
1A, 1B, fine.
And I'll say, you know what? Fuck it. I'll say Hawks number 1 because I'll just admit, I don't think we're as good as the Nets yet. And if they're healthy, That's why. That's the other thing. I was annoyed because we lost to them. They were never fully healthy, or with their complete team when we played them, and that's why I was like, man, we could have stolen one there. I think the Hawks is number one.
Jeremy,
if I'm going 1A, 1B, I'm going in a different direction. I'm actually going Celtics and Heat.
What's the rivalry with the Celtics?
Well,
seriously?
But this is the thing. It's all personal, right? So I went to college in the Boston area.
Okay.
My grandparents were Boston sports fans. Like, it's very much been around me to the point where it's great seeing the Celtics lose, even though like they're not playoff rivalries. They haven't.
I don't even care.
When the Knicks are good, the Celtics are bad. When the Celtics are it happened once or recently where I guess twice, right? The Knicks won one, the Celtics won one. But right to you, like right now, it may not matter. And then there's the Heat where forget about, back in the 90s, even just from my perspective, it's still the fact of like everything that Miami represents, not as a city, but as a team. And
they're number three for me, to be clear.
And also, I mean, if we do want to talk about the 90s, the fact that they're run by someone who, if given power, probably would have turned this team into a very different, great powerhouse. And we probably would have had a similar situation to what we're seeing in Miami. And it's easy to root against that. It's easy to, that's the one thing, right? If you look at an ex and you're like, oh, I want what's best for them. But at the same time, you're like, I really want to see them be with worse people, sort of thing.
You don't want what's best for every ex.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It depends. Some you say they're a good person. I'll let them go. I was like, I just wish not many good things happen to that person. That's basically the Miami Heat. So, it's that sort of mindset as well. So look, I don't like the Nets. I don't like the Hawks, but to me, the Nets are on such a different level as well that it's almost like, okay, cool. Play the Nets and they probably beat the Knicks several times. The Hawks, it's maybe a different story because, it was still closer and we'll see. But with the Celtics and Heat, I feel like they're in a closer category. Maybe the Hawks are a little lower than the Heat, even than the Celtics. Regardless, those are just two teams that I really don't like. And so for me, beating them, it's like, those are the 6 games I care about. Celtics and the Heat.
What's so funny? We just named 4 different teams.
7 games.
Well, no, I'm not talking about that.
I
you named 2 teams.
Not 6, 7 games because they played the Celtics 4 times.
You named 2 teams. I named 2 teams. None of the teams that we named were the team that if you had, I don't know how many Knicks fans would have admitted it. I don't even know if I would have admitted it, but 20 months ago, if you
haven't given my list yet.
Are they on it?
Yes.
Are they number 1?
They're number 2.
Okay, so the Mavs are number 2 for you.
Yeah, and that's, I think, first of all, Jeremy hit on something that probably leads to more rivalries than anything else that we've discussed so far. And it's way more than like, I want to see that team lose. It's, I want those cities' fans to be miserable. And the New York Boston thing, it transcends.
That's good.
Whether be Jets Giants against the Patriots or Yankees against the Red Sox. Like Knicks Boston, where I personally don't care about the Celtics, but if Patriots and Red Sox fans are miserable because the Celtics lost, hell yeah, I'm against the Celtics. Okay. And we talked about it, John, in the 2-man draft. The Mavericks are a trade away from me not caring about them and actually probably rooting for them because of the player loyalty that's become of the NBA. I would be a big Lucas stan and want to watch him succeed, but it's not even the rooting against Porzingis. It's rooting against every single person that took a victory lap when the Knicks traded Porzingis and then didn't have the summer of 2019. And it's like, oh, look how incompetent. It'll never be fixed. And now all of the excuses of actually like injury plagued 7-foot guy that really didn't have a low post game to begin with. I'm kind of okay if they decided to pull the plug now and get what they could. Now it's about winning the trade, which makes Dallas right behind Miami for me.
That's fair. No,
one of the annoying things as well is that there's so little self-accountability that people take victory laps the moment. And I'm sure I'm guilty of this, and I'm sure we're all 3 of us, and even those listening, we take victory laps when things first happen, and maybe it goes the other way. And it's like, okay, well, why are you still caring about that down the line, right? And so for the Mavs thing with Porzingis, where everyone's like, I can't believe the Knicks did this. They traded Porzingis and got this package and it sucks and blah, blah, blah. And here we are 2 years later where, again, trades can even be win-wins, but depending on how they treat Porzingis and how Porzingis treats them, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a win-win. Regardless, if Porzingis gets traded and then we, have wry smiles on our face and we're basically like, yeah, who could have seen that coming? Like us, we could have. And then Dallas fans being like, okay, well, why are you still hung up on that? The trade's over, blah, blah, and that sort of thing. And I feel like that happens a lot. So that's why I'm, victory laps are great, especially when you feel like at first you were told no. And it's like, no, we know that this is going to be a good trade. You just got to give it time, that sort of thing. So,
is there a hint of because the Mavericks lose, Cowboys fans will be miserable? Or like because Cowboys fans transcend all the sports, like technically all Yankee fans might also be Cowboy fans too?
I think it's the other way around. If Cowboy fans are miserable, Mavs fans are miserable. But if Mavs fans are miserable, then some Cowboys fans are miserable.
If Cowboys fans are miserable, half the country's miserable then.
Pretty much.
Yes.
But then they'll just turn to the Lakers and maybe the Yankees are on a win streak.
Alabama. Yeah.
They'll be fine.
I'm trying to think if there's any fan base that I really actually care about.
Boston's one. Philly's another.
I don't care about Boston sports fans.
Oh, you're a Steeler fan. That's why.
I mean, please, the Patriots have kicked the shit out of the Steelers like it's their job over the last 20 years.
There you go.
Nets fans. I fucking hate Nets fans.
You also moved into the middle of where they might exist, which is hilarious.
Like the heart of it.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of funny to hear you guys over the years say like, oh, there are no Nets fans. And then it's like, oh, I hate Nets fans. Like, so you hate all 98 of them that live in like a 5-block radius of your house?
You didn't let me respond. The heart of Nets fandom?
It's Jersey. Yeah. 20 minutes away.
Well, that's first of all. Second of all, like I've been here for how long have I been here for 3 weeks? I haven't seen fucking so much as a t-shirt, a hat, jersey, like, come on. Nobody gives a shit about this team. For Jeremy, the 87 that do, I don't like you.
Jeremy, so I went to see John this week and I went to Barclays to like take Atlantic Terminal back to like go back where I live. And it was there where I finally saw a Brooklyn Nets paraphernalia. And you know where I saw it? On the building.
Yeah.
No, on the building. On Barclays Center.
There is a thing. So we're recording this on Sunday at it's 8 something. There's a thing that is happening right now at the Barclays Center.
Can I ask you to give me 3 guesses of what you think it is? Because it's hilarious that
I drove past it, so I know.
What is it?
It's the VMAs.
There you go. We got it. Okay.
I was about to say there is a thing happening at the Barclays Center right now that the people there care more about that thing going on than the people than any other group of people has cared about any other thing that has ever gone on at the Barclays Center, unless there was another VMAs that I don't know about.
Another VMA. Yes, the multiple VMAs they have.
My wife, no, I mean like
VMA
from previous year
is first, and
the fall VMAs, Jeremy.
We drove.
It's like Fashion Week.
We drove past it earlier. My wife's like, "Oh my god, I really want to go." I'm like, I turned to her. I'm like, I can't name what. Why would you want to go? Like we did between the two of us, we could name 5 people that are or acts or whatever that are performing there tonight. But she's like, "No, I want to go."
Is Gunna performing? This is a guess, but people are listening. Please tell us. That's just thank you, Chris, for giving me a shot to name someone. Oh, the driver's license girl. What's her name, Jeremy?
Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah, her.
I have no idea who that is.
Right? This is the oldest I think we've sounded.
I haven't followed the VMAs because
I heard on the radio that Lorde pulled out.
Oh, the Royals.
And I knew who Lorde was, so I was proud of myself that I knew who she was. And that Nicki Minaj also pulled out. I also knew who she was. I was very proud of myself for both of those things.
That's
anyway,
good. Yeah.
Speaking of victory laps, it's time for me to redeem myself.
Are you ready, guys, to play another edition of I Know The Knicks? We have 3 categories full with brand new answers on the board. The three categories range in different segments of Knicks history that happened while I've been on this earth. First, we have the 2021 season, a special season in which the Knicks won 41 games and with a 4 seed, and we will ignore what happened against the Hawks in the playoffs. The next is post-decision, which happened on January 8th, 2010, where LeBron took his talents down to South Beach to join the Miami Heat in a moment that a lot of us thought we had a chance at, but did not even close to have a chance at in hindsight. The next category is post-Claudio. So since I was born in 1988, all of the things that have happened in Knicks history since then. Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy won.
Reigning champion. You get to choose which category we go to first.
Let's just go with the recent history of 2021.
Okay, recent history of 2021. Last season, the Knicks won 41 games. There were 12 teams in which they defeated by at least 15 points. Jeremy.
Hold on. Can I hear that question again? I'm sorry.
Last season, the New York Knicks won 41 games. The first time they've won over 40 games since the 2013 season.
Okay.
Jeremy, you get to go first. The Knicks in 12 of those games, 12 of those wins, won by at least 15 points. Actually, let me rephrase that because it technically is 15 times that it happened, but 3 different times they did it to 2 teams. So there's 12 teams
they beat by more than
at least 15 points.
Okay.
15 or more. So it's
12
not
franchises.
Just yes, 12 franchises. Yes.
Okay.
So Jeremy, go first.
Celtics.
The Celtics, they beat them by 30, 105 to 75.
The Bucks.
No,
wait,
John
in the beginning
it goes back and forth.
Oh,
they didn't beat. Are you saying they didn't beat the Bucks by 15 points?
But Jeremy went.
Right,
You did the Celtics. Now it's your turn. So say the Bucks.
The Bucks.
There.
I forgot how the you know what it was.
I forgot to say
that. And
I thought it was
beat
the same
John
way.
so badly last week that I was accustomed to just rattling off names.
Everybody go fuck themselves.
And
Jeez, John.
that's how it works.
Okay.
That's actually better than John telling me that he hopes I go bald by 30 because I built a better draft team than he did.
Oh shit. But, there you go. He's winning right now, our poll on Patreon. For those who don't know, John, Chris, and I drafted an all 2010s team. And the teams are up on Patreon if you'd like to go watch the team and vote on who wins. Watch the draft, I should say, and vote on who wins. And on a patreon.com/Knicks Film School. John, your answer was the Bucks because Jeremy said it already. Jeremy, you get to go again.
Pistons.
They beat the Pistons twice by 15, 109 to 90 and 125 to 81. The second game, Tibbs had Julius Randle in the game up by 35.
The Washington Wizards.
They beat them twice by 15 points, 109 to 91, and then 131 to 113. Correct.
All right.
There are 8 more teams.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. The Cavs.
Cavaliers, they beat 102 to 81 at one point in the season. Correct.
The Rockets of Houston.
The Rockets of Houston, they beat twice by at least 15 points. In fact, they're the only team they beat twice by 20 points, 121 to 99 and 122 to 97.
Okay.
Jeremy.
So we've listed, you want to list all the teams that we've listed?
Yep. The Bucks, the Celtics, the Cavaliers, the Pistons, the Rockets, and the Wizards.
Okay.
You've listed half of them so far.
Yes. I know they lost the first game. I'm trying to think of the second game.
Again, 1 strike and you're out.
That's why I'm trying to be as cautious.
I know. I'm filling time, Jeremy.
No, that's
okay.
great.
He could listen. Jeremy, he deserves. He's the defending champ.
Go ahead, take your time.
He deserves all the time that he needs. That's all I'm going to say.
Again, this is at least 15 points that the Knicks won by last season.
Yeah.
The 2021 season.
That would be the season.
This season.
All right. The Hawks.
Incorrect. The Knicks did not beat the Hawks. They won 2 games close, and then the last game they won by 10 in overtime.
So now it's my turn to
name as many as you want to try and capitalize. You're both tied at 3 so far.
Okay.
There's 6 remaining teams the Knicks defeated by 15 points last season.
Orlando.
Incorrect. The Knicks did not beat the Magic by 15 points last year. In fact, if you want to Google that real quick, just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that they didn't beat the Magic by 15 points. John's so mad. He wanted to steal.
No, I mean, listen, this is a good question. I had two other teams written down, but I went with the Magic. And even though I didn't have a clear recollection of them beating that team by that many points, I was just like, they had to have beaten the Magic by more than 15 points. But if you tell me they didn't.
I'm going to double check because I know they beat the Magic once and then lost them. No. Okay. They definitely didn't, because one of those games was stupid close. And then one of those games was they won, but it wasn't as convincingly. They beat the Bulls 113-94. It was the first game after the Suns game that ended the winning streak.
Okay.
They beat the Warriors on the road 119-104. That's when we started to think, something's happening here.
Okay.
John, I'm surprised last week you were eliminated in this round because you mentioned the Lakers, a team that they beat once by 15 points, 111-96, when they were missing LeBron and Anthony Davis.
Okay.
RJ Barrett's first career 30-point game came in Oklahoma City, a game the Knicks won.
That was the low-hanging. That was the low-hanging fruit.
That was the one where it's like, oh, they lost the first, but they won the second.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't remember that part.
When Frank was reinserted back into the lineup, the Knicks beat the Kings 140-121 at the Garden.
Game. I remember that game.
And then I think you had a christening, or you missed the post.
The Raptors.
120-103.
So I had two other teams written down: Raptors and Warriors, in addition to the Magic. And of course, I said the fucking Magic. So bad job by me.
That's okay. I may edit this part out, but I'm gonna just triple check about the Magic.
I believe you. I certainly.
They beat the Magic 91-84 and 94-93. Okay. There we go. I will leave this part in, folks. You got to see the unedited version of this episode. Okay, John, you now get to decide post decision or post Claudio.
Post decision.
Post decision in the last.
So wait, did anybody get any points there?
3-3. You guys tied.
Okay.
Yes. So in the last 10-ish years, since July 8th of 2010. 11 Knicks have scored 35 points in a game. That is embarrassing. 11 Knicks have scored 35 points in a game. That's it. Been a rough decade. John, you get to go first.
Randall.
Julius Randle has done it 6 times in the last decade. Jeremy.
Carmelo Anthony.
Stay on brand, John. Carmelo Anthony did it 50 times this decade.
Did he really?
Yes.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. What do you know?
It's since the decision we're talking about here?
Since the decision, yes. Carmelo Anthony did it 50. Julius Randle did it 6 times. Now, I will say it's only been done by the Knicks franchise, by all of these guys, all 11 of these guys, total 83 times. So you've now taken up 56 of them.
Wow. All right, so I go again?
You get to go again.
Amari Stoudemire.
Amari Stoudemire did it 9 times.
9 times?
Yes, 9 times.
9 times.
A bunch of them happened like in a row too during that winning streak that people thought was a reason why the Knicks should never trade anybody in 2010.
It's 35 points, right?
35 points in a game. Yes.
Jeremy Lin.
Jeremy Lin did it once against the Lakers, the classic moment of Linsanity. Jeremy Lin is correct.
Jeremy. Is that 38 or 39 he scored?
I think he did 38 as the score. Yes. $35 points.
You know, it's funny. I can't remember a specific game when he did it, but I have to think at least once Porzingis did it.
Or Porzingis did it 5 different times.
Did he? Okay.
Yes. In fact, I think his career high 40 came against the Lakers also. During that first half of 2018 when they were 16-14 on Christmas Day. He had like a mini run where all he did was score 35. Jeremy.
5.
I'm in uncharted territory now because there aren't names that just easily come to my mind.
I will say, so no hints, but you guys have named the 4 guys that have done it the most. Carmelo Anthony, Kristaps Porzingis, Julius Randle, and Amari Stoudemire. Melo did it 50, Amari 9, Randle 6, and Porzingis 5.
All right. So I feel like it had to have happened at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith did it 3 times, all during the 12-13 season where he was the 6th man of the year.
I would not have. And he's right here, folks.
He's right behind on John's brand new decorated background for those enjoying it on YouTube.com. Again, 35 points in a game since July 8th, 2010. Right now, the score. Go ahead, John. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm filibustering here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a name. Again. I don't. If you're asking me if I remember a specific instance of this happening, I don't. But this, I mean, he was on the team for so many. I mean, it would have been the second time around, though. All right, I'm going to say it. Tim Hardaway Jr.
Did it 4 times. Yes. You guys have now named everybody that's done it at least 3 times.
So everybody else has done it 1 or 2 times.
Yes. There are 4 players left. You guys have listed 7. John right now is winning the actual game 7-6. Jeremy, now we get into the impressive if you know category.
I don't feel good about this answer, but I'm thinking about the lack of scoring that has been available, lack of creation as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it happened last year, but maybe in 2016, I'll say Derrick Rose.
Incorrect.
No.
Derrick Rose did not get 30 in a game.
I knew that.
35 in a game, excuse me. So Jeremy's out. John, you have 4 names remaining. Let's see if you can get one of them. You're currently winning the game.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 35 points in a game.
So hold on.
Are we putting a time limit on John?
No.
Like a minute time limit for the sake of our
at
listeners?
a certain point, I'll say I need an answer, but he's got time. He's winning. So it's 35 points in a game since the decision.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm wondering if there was someone else on last year's team besides Julius Randle who did it. And I know RJ Barrett didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't think no one else did. Who else would have done it? Nobody else did it. So it's not anybody on last year's team. I have 4 names written down. There's 4 players left.
There are 4 players left.
One of them I'm almost certain did not, but I wrote down Courtney Lee because I wrote it down. The other 3 names, I think there's a chance that each of these guys did it. And that's Enes Kanter, Marcus Morris, and Michael Beasley.
Whoa. Time out. You got to pick one, buddy.
I know. I'm just said a name.
I'm just saying. And there's a possibility that none of them did. I'd be shocked if none of those guys did it. I think probably 2 of the 3 did it. And I think there's a possibility that 3 of the 3 did it.
Need an answer.
I'm going to go with Morris.
Marcus Morris did it twice.
Awesome. Okay.
There you go. Marcus Morris did it twice during the season before. He was
during the half a season he was
for the pick that became Emmanuel Quickley. So John now has 8 points. 8-6 lead. You have 3 remaining answers. All did it one time.
I'm going to go with Kanter.
Incorrect.
Didn't do it.
Never did it. Aaron Aflalo did.
He was I swear to God, his name just, I swear on my children, because I'm thinking of their big free agent signings. And I'm like, well, I know Robin Lopez never did it. And Aflalo did it? I was like, Kyle O'Quinn didn't do it. Aflalo? No. Okay. Aflalo did it.
When I was doing the research for this and I was thinking of different parameters on StatHead, when I did 20 and 20.
Well, Kanter, we know did that on Christmas.
Kanter did that like a ton of times. So it was
and
like,
other times.
Yeah. But no, never did it. Never 35 points in a game. Okay. Infamously, Trey Burke did it once.
Oh my God. He had 42 fucking points against Charlotte.
42 and 12.
Charlotte. Yeah.
And then last but not least.
Can I throw out? Did you say
I haven't said it yet. Go ahead. Who do you think?
Moutier had 30. I don't think he had 35.
He did not.
Okay.
It was Beno Udre.
It was a point guard, not Beno Udre, though.
Wait, it was a point guard?
It was a point guard that did it. I was shocked at this one.
Hold on. Give me half a
35
second.
points.
35 points. Yes. Did it during the... I don't have the game written down, but he did it during the Melo
Felton
era.
never did it.
Raymond Felton did it once.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Again, this was one time they had 35 points in a game. John, you are winning, though. The game 8-6 at the moment.
I'm mad I didn't say a flower.
So Jeremy, in our last category, post me.
And fucking Burke. My God, how did I forget Burke? Sorry.
The Trey Burke one, I think, because it was funny when Randall scored 40 in a game last year. And all of the national podcasts were like, do you know who the last person to score a 40 in a game for the Knicks was?
It was an overtime game that they lost.
That was an over. Yes.
I remember that game. That was arguably the most memorable game from that season. And I believe Kemba went for 50 that game.
Might have. The point of what I'm trying to say is like the fact that national podcasts were like, specifically KOC and Verno, were like, if you know who the last person to score 40 for the Knicks is, then you have too much time on you need to stop watching Knicks because you pay attention to them way too much. And every Knicks fan was like, yeah, Trey Burke, it was in overtime. He had 42 and 12, and we thought maybe that's a thing. Last but not least, the post-Claudio era. This is an easy one for you guys. Or at least I think it'll be an easy one for you guys. Maybe less so for you, Jeremy, but we'll see what happens. The Knicks have had 18 head coaches or interim head coaches since the 88-89 season. Can you name all of them? Jeremy, you get to go first.
18 since the 88-89 season?
Yes.
Okay.
So in 33 years, they've had 18 interim or head coaches.
All right. Tom Thibodeau.
Tom Thibodeau's 1, correct.
Pat Riley.
That's 2, correct.
David Fizdale.
That's correct.
Lenny Wilkins.
Correct. Wow. John's getting the hard ones out the way.
So he is. Mike D'Antoni.
Correct.
Woodson. Mike Woodson.
That's correct.
Mike Miller.
Correct. Hold on. Let me catch up. Jeremy said Tibbs and who?
He said Tibbs, D'Antoni. Fizz, D'Antoni, Miller. I said Riley, Wilkins, Woody, and I'll say, I should probably get a hard one or an easier one out of the way first. I'll say Larry Brown.
Larry Brown. Good one. Here for a year.
Don Nelson.
Don Nelson. Good job. Here for half a season.
Saving him for 10th because he was the best one of the lot. Jeff Van Gundy.
Jeff Van Gundy took over for Don Nelson after that half a season.
Herb Williams.
Great call. 2 different stints. As Nick
it's so funny. I had his name written down.
I was keeping it.
The next one.
I was keeping it in the back of my mind because I thought, why go with a wild card early? Save it in my back pocket. So,
I'll do it now. Okay, hold on. I'm just writing down my future guesses. Jeff Hornacek.
That is correct. From
Derek
2016 to 2018. Derek Fisher is correct. From 2014 to 2016.
Hold on. Let me just make sure we're not missing any ones over the last several years. So we went Tibbs, Hornacek, Fisher.
Jeremy
Woody.
Doing this off the cuff.
Yeah. I feel like I should get bonus points for that.
Or just like a bravo, because you could be doing the same.
Listen, I know I'm going to lose this because
no, you might not. You might not. This is harder than
what I will.
think.
Well, no, because I have to catch up to you. But what I will gain is the people's respect, and that's all that I can ask for in the end.
There you go.
Don Chaney.
Elite call, John. Yes, correct.
There's one more obvious one. At 2, but
it depends. Depends on when you grew up.
No, there's. Well, okay, I'm not gonna say anything else.
No, I know. I'm trying to think of. Kurt Rambis.
Correct. There you go.
Isaiah Thomas.
Correct. Wow. So there's 2 left.
Now these are the tough. I may get these wrong.
God Almighty. This is going to be a tougher one for me. Because I know that they were coaches probably before I was born.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Both of the remaining coaches are coaches from before you were born.
Man, yeah, I know I'm not going to get it.
I mean, there's two
famous
coaches.
Two famous coaches.
There's only in Knicks history.
No, I mean, there's in the 80s there are two famous.
So
Pat Riley took over, I believe, wait, hold on. Pat Riley was there for 4 years, so 95, 94, 93, 92. So Pat Riley took over in 1991.
Yes.
So these are all 80s coaches, but two of them are famous. This is a hint
to both of you, but the two.
Well, hold on, no, hold on. It's Jeremy's turn.
Okay, words. Never mind.
How many more coaches are there? Two.
More?
Okay.
You guys. The funny thing is, John is going to win this anyway. Yet he won't even let me go out.
He knows both of them. So
no, I have three names written down. I'm not sure which are the two.
Well, okay. I have no names in my head. So,
all right, Jeremy, name anybody that you think could have been a Knicks coach, unless you're tapping out.
I'd rather go down fighting than tap out. At this point. But I just.
So one of them is still
I got it. Okay. Probably not actually going to love this one, but Rick Pitino.
Rick Pitino is correct. There you go, Jeremy. John, so you name the last name.
So you took away one of the names that was written down for me. So the last two names I have, and I hope I got the first name right. Hold on. Let me set the stage right now. Jeremy is trailing by 1. So if you get this, it's for the game. However, if I don't, we're tied. Jeremy has a chance to. Jeremy's trailing by 1. Oh, because he can steal. Jeremy can steal. Oh, so then I shouldn't game for the round. So then I shouldn't name both names because that are on my mind. Name whoever you want, but then because one answer. Jeremy, this is for the win because John. There is. If Jeremy really doesn't have the other name in his head,
I don't have the other name.
But he could take a wild guess. Okay, right?
So let me just. I have two names written down. One of them is a name that is a well-known basketball name that I'm not going to say anything else. The other is not. Well, no, he's not. I think it's the less well-known name, but I'm thinking of saying the more well-known one because at the very least that'll get me a tie.
I'll tell you what. Say the less well-known name because if it's impressive, it's great, and if it's not, then
okay, fine. I'll say it. Is it Stu Jackson?
It's Stu Jackson.
Okay,
John wins this.
Wait, can I guess what the more famous name was?
Sure.
Was it Hubie Brown?
Yes.
Hubie Brown was the coach fired right before Rick Pitino.
Wait.
Or replaced right before.
Oh, that's
Pitino.
right. It was Pitino and then Jackson and not Jackson, then Pitino. That's right.
Yes.
All I'm reading into this is it's actually Andrew's parents' fault for not creating Andrew a few years earlier. So I could have said Hubie Brown, but
shoot. Okay. John, bonus points. This is one I missed, but that is no chance Jeremy knows who it is. This is one I missed. Is the guy who replaced Stu Jackson.
No idea.
John McLeod.
No,
Knicks went 32.
John McLeod could walk in my living room right now and I wouldn't know who he is.
I had no idea who he was, but apparently when Stu Jackson was replaced as Knicks head coach in the 1990-91 season, John McLeod took over in an interim basis. The Knicks lost in the first round. Enter Pat Riley.
So the better question is, I know Red Holzman came back. Was that in the 80s? I think he came back for a brief stint in the 80s, right?
Yes, from 1979 to the 82 season. So 81, 82 season. So for 3 seasons from 79 to 82.
Okay.
And then Hubie Brown coached a team for 5 years.
And Willis Reed was the coach for a brief period of time in the 70s?
Right before Holtzman, right? Willis Reed coached a team for 2 years and then started not even 1 year, went 43-39, lost in the semis.
And then Holtzman came back.
Holtzman came back, Knicks went 25-43 and coached the team for the next 3 seasons.
And then did Reed take over for Holtzman?
No, Hubie Brown took over for Holtzman.
No, I mean the first time did Reed take over for Holtzman?
Yes. Holtzman coached the team from 68 to 77. Reed took over for a year and a half.
And if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you who was the coach in 1967.
We even mentioned him a couple of times in this game before. Oh, you know what? We haven't mentioned him in this game. What we have mentioned him in is the draft, the Knicks draft that we had right before the NBA draft.
I don't know. Who was it?
Dick McGuire.
Oh.
Dick McGuire was the head coach. And then Harry Gallatin.
Harry Gallatin.
Yes. and then names I don't know. But that is your trip down memory lane of I Know the Knicks. Congratulations, Sean, on your victory today.
Well, for my victory speech, I am going to dedicate this win to my oldest daughter, Scarlett Ray Macri, because by the time you are listening to this, it will be Monday, September 13th, which will also be Scarlett Ray Macri's first day of kindergarten. Oh. So I am a bit of an emotional dad today. I did not watch most of the Giant game because I was at like a pre first day of school thing in her new schoolyard. And then because again, emotional dad, went out to CVS with her to get labels, to put labels on all of her shit that she's going in with tomorrow. So this is what you do as a dad when you get to 38. You're not watching football on Sunday. You're going to CVS to get labels. And I couldn't be happier. So
it's very cute. It makes me feel even better that I let you win this time.
I thought Jeremy was going a whole different direction with that. Makes me feel even better that I don't have kids.
I had a great weekend. I watched so much football.
Oh my God, so drunk. I got late so many times.
I will say I want to add a name to the coaching list.
Yeah.
I think it's fair if we don't mention it. It'd be kind of crazy. Phil Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Because by extension, also that's two coaches as well, right? 3 actually, because he brought in Hornacek.
Yeah,
he did.
So
3 technically, because it was Fisher, Rambis, Hornacek.
Yeah. So if he's coaching through them, then I don't know. It sounds like a win. But anyway, it's awesome, John. Very, very happy for Scarlett Ray, and I'm sure she'll have a great day.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
You guys remember anything from kindergarten?
Sure. I remember there was a kid that shit his pants. He was wearing red sweatpants and he pooped.
Was it you, John?
Yeah.
And
it was just saying. First of all, I would not wear red sweatpants. Yep. Second of all, no, it was not me.
Okay.
I remember kindergarten. Yeah.
What do you remember? We're talking like 4 years ago. So.
Right. Yeah. It was the best,
sorry, that's an easier one.
That's fine. Honestly, I make so much fun of John. I should actually make fun of you too.
Yeah.
We had to go really far back to get a lot of that information. But thank you for digging into the archives. I'm sure a lot of dust on your computer that came about.
Jeremy still has his like star chart that every time you read a book, you get a star in kindergarten.
Yeah.
How many stars did you get, Jeremy?
That's a great question. I
69.
Yeah, nice. I created it with my parents' help, of course. It was like like a poster of a collage of me, because every kid was supposed to do a collage of themselves, and it's still hanging up at my parents' place.
That's nice. That's actually really cute.
So yeah.
Very cool.
I'm trying to think if I knew the Knicks were a thing in kindergarten.
I didn't.
I did not. Yeah. I knew the Yankees were a thing because they won a World Series.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wonder what team they won against.
Oh, really? You were 5 for the Subway Series in 2000?
Yeah, it was the Mets. That's right.
I don't really care if the Mets lost. I'm just mad that you were 5 in 2000. I was 12, and I remember every.
I don't even know if my first sports memory had happened in kindergarten, because I was born in '83. My first sports memory is wide right.
Oh, wow. Giants Bills. Okay.
Yeah.
It's actually Yankee memory. My first sports memory is Charlie Hayes in 96 catching.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was the first time I was allowed to stay up for a game because everybody at church was talking about game 6 tonight. And then my parents I was like, what's game 6? And they let me stay up.
Oh, well, that's cool. Yeah, that's fine. And then my first athlete that I was cognizant of was Darryl Strawberry, because I remember his last name was Strawberry, and I thought that was like the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah. Reason my number in high school and other bar and recreational leagues is 18 is Darryl Strawberry. Yeah. There you go.
Mine was Jeter.
Well, duh. Congratulations. Derek Jeter made the Hall of Fame this week.
Yes, he did.
Officially.
He was inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Made the Hall of Fame. Wow.
Just I'll be the Mets fan to say it. Deservedly so. I'm curious. I should know this, of course, but I don't. Was he unanimous, or did someone not vote for him? Jeremy, say it.
He should have been unanimous, but one writer decided to not give him that distinction.
One. Missed it by 1 vote.
Wasn't Rivera unanimous?
Yes. He was, and rightfully so. I mean, if you had to pick between the two, Rivera's the greatest relief pitcher of all time.
I mean, the asshole?
And it's anonymous, so nobody knows who the one is.
Oh,
yeah.
shit.
So probably to his grave, the guy will do it. Now, if the guy's smart, he'll wait like 10 years and write a book like I was the guy, and then sell his anonymity for a book deal. Yeah. And like I saw some of the Twitter discourse that it's like ridiculous. He is actually not a Hall of Famer. He played all his games with Kansas City. He never would have been. And I just like being in New York, the 20 years that he played here, like, no, there was the numbers aside, fame is the fame part of the Hall of Fame. Derek Jeter was the face of the sport for 20 years. Derek
Jeter's a Hall of Famer because his stats are not top 20 or top 30 all-time baseball stats. I think we'd all agree about that. He's a Hall of Famer because for the better part of 20 years, he was one of the five most famous athletes, maybe a better part of 20 years, but a good portion of that, he was one of the 5 or 10 most famous athletes in the world, or certainly in the country.
There's a stretch where if you were to ask any random person in the world to name an athlete that plays baseball, it's Derek Jeter. It's on the same level of name a basketball player, Michael Jordan, name a football player, Tom Brady. So
let's also just say it because it's true. Derek Jeter retired 6th in all time on the hits list. Mm-hmm. So the writer saying the player who has who's got more hits than all but 5 other people to ever play the sport of baseball does not deserve to get into the Hall of Fame. It's just absurd. It's attention grabbing. And the fact that we're even talking about him shows that he's won. And
it worked.
Yeah. And
Mr. Anonymous is won.
Yeah.
We also dedicate this episode to the other Mr. Anonymous, Trae Young. No one gives a fuck about you. Go fucking be a heel someplace else.
Shots fired.
Can't see you on Christmas, motherfucker.
That should be how
Santa's coming for you.
That should be how we end the pod. Subscribe, rate, and review.